Hey everyone, this is Dennis with the Weathered Wheel. I got a very interesting project here I thought we'd share with you. This belongs to one of our good customers. She wants this thing restored. White, distress, dark top. As you can see, it needs some work. Veneer's coming off. I've already replaced the back of one of the drawers. But since she wants this thing painted white, we're either gonna have to strip all this red paint off or sand it, get it smooth and paint it a dark color so that when you distress the white, the red doesn't show. You get a nice dark color, looks natural. There's easier ways to do that, like with Gilder's paste or something like that, but to me it just doesn't look as good. So we're gonna start stripping this thing down. The top's gotta be completely stripped down. What I'll do is go over this with a 60 grit sandpaper, really rough, it'll eat that paint off, and then step it up with finer grit sandpaper as you go. 60, 120, 220, get it nice and smooth, and then stain it. But I thought we'd share a little video with you so you can see how we get this done. And this is my first video, by the way, so if I sound a little goofy or misspeak, just don't pay any attention to it. Just enjoy the final outcome. Thanks. Alright, well, as you can see, the sanding wasn't doing that great, so I went with another option. Spread this paint and poly remover all over the top, let it soak in and penetrate the top layer. As you can see, it's starting to bubble up already. And as old as this thing is, that's probably lead-based paint, so it's probably not a good idea to have all that dust flying around. So we'll let this soak in, and then we'll scrape it off with a scraper and then go over it with a sandpaper. Make it nice and smooth. Alright, this is after 2 applications of the paint remover, and this is why I don't like using it. It makes a big mess. But I think it's going to loosen it up enough where it won't kill my sander. First I'm going to pour some lacquer thinner on it. Wipe it down. I like lacquer thinner because it evaporates so quick. You don't have such a big mess. That'll help loosen it up some more, clean it up, get all the debris so it doesn't clog my sandpaper up as fast. And then a few more minutes, we'll have this thing nice and clean. Okay, we got the top stripped down finally. There's still a little pink in there, but I think the stain's going to overcome that. And we got the rest of it stripped down. You know, it's not, when you're painting a piece, it's not important to remove every piece of paint, but just to make sure it's nice and smooth. These spindles had to be brushed down with a wire brush to get in the cracks and crevices, make sure all the flaky paint was out of there. The next step will be to give it a bath in a water and vinegar solution. Make sure it's nice and clean. Then we'll take the top off, put the darker paint on it, because like I said, we're going to paint it white and distressed. Well, this thing is red, and even in the wood parts, it's a light blonde colored wood, so the distressing, you wouldn't be able to tell it was distressed. So we're going to paint it dark first, let that dry, then we'll prime it, give the top coat something to adhere to, because that darker paint's going to be like an enamel. Chalk paint doesn't react very well on top of that kind of paint, so we're going to paint it, prime it, then paint it again, and then distress it. She's coming along pretty good. We got the veneer glued on, letting that dry. So by the time that's dried, and then the water and vinegar's dried up, it'll be ready to go, ready to be painted. All right, here's where we're at now. We got it nice and clean, sanded down smooth, wiped it down with water and vinegar, and we just put a base coat. It's just a dark walnut spray paint, that's all it is. You could get away with just painting around the corners wherever you want to distress, so that this is the color that's coming through the white paint rather than the red or the blonde wood. But I figured you painting it white, you'll be able to see slight difference. So I just went ahead and painted the whole thing black, so it's a nice even color when we're done with it. Got the top clean, taped off. As soon as this dries, I'll go over it with a white oil-based primer, and that'll block out any stains that might come through this paint so that the white doesn't bleed. All right, now we got a good coat of primer on her. Next step, what I do is I take this fine grit sanding sponge here and kind of just go over the surface of the primer, just in case you left any lint or whatever behind from wiping it down. If it gets trapped in the primer, or you get any bugs or whatever in it, this will make it, you want your surface nice and smooth. Just lightly go over it. Take any trash that you might have in the primer out. And then you'll do the same thing once you get your chalk paint on it. Just gives it a smooth surface. But she's ready for paint. We'll hit it with the chalk paint and then take the tape off the top, stain it, let all that dry, and poly the base, or polyacrylic on the base and polyurethane on the top. And these are the pieces that I got done last night while we were waiting for the primer to dry on this one. All right, finally we got some paint laid down on this piece. Took the tape off the top, get ready to stain it. And hopefully that stain will overcome this red that I couldn't get out of the top. I don't know how it's gonna turn out, so we'll see. All the pieces to it out there. And this little guy needed so much work that I was able to catch up with these big pieces, and they're in the same stage. They're painted, tops are stripped, ready to be stained. The inside of this had to be stripped down with lacquer thinner. We're gonna restain that, freshen it up. And then once this paint is dry enough to distress, we'll get it distressed and polyed. Some people distress before they mess with the tops, but this stain takes 8 hours to dry, so to stay on track, I'm gonna go ahead and stain it, let it start drying. All right, we got the top stained. It turned out pretty good. I like the rustic look of it, but there's a little bit of that red still coming through that I'm not too crazy about. So I'm gonna do what I can to try and massage that out, or got a couple little tricks we can use to try to camouflage it at least, but overall it's not bad considering the condition that it was in. Now these turned out absolutely perfect. Just because they were in such great shape to begin with. But we'll let that soak in. Maybe put another coat or some glaze across the top. I don't know, we'll figure it out. Next step after this is let that paint dry a little bit more, and then we'll distress it and polyacrylic it, and then put polyurethane on the tops. We'll probably just polyacrylic inside here. It doesn't get as much traffic as the buffets. The polyurethane is oil based and it's got a lot more protection. So, all right, new and improved top. There's no more red. It's all gone. What I did was take a little bit of black chalk paint, watered it down, and gave it a black wash. Diluted it and just rubbed it into the stain. It got around, it covered up the red. It's a little bit darker, but you still see the wood grain coming through. I think it looks great. Hopefully when we put the polyurethane over the top of it, it doesn't pull that red to the top. So, we'll see. All right, finally we got it distressed. We got a good coat of polyacrylic on the paint. Good coat of polyurethane on the top. There's no red. That beautiful wood grains coming through. This piece is missing some hardware, so the customer's just gonna have to pick out some nice hardware. That's really gonna set it off. We also got these other two pieces done while we were at it. When I get these put back together with hardware, I'll take a quick shot of that too. Let you see how those turned out.